Ready to dive into some hoodoo?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're talking about timing.
Okay.
And how it can seriously amp up your spell work.
Right.
We are unpacking a video by a practitioner called the Broken Prophet.
I've heard of him, yeah.
And he's got a take on this that you might not expect.
Oh, really?
Forget moon phases.
Okay.
We're getting strategic.
Interesting. So not like, typical kind of like astrological timing
Right.
that a lot of people associate with magic.
Exactly. It's a fascinating perspective, I think, because it challenges like those common assumptions.
Yeah.
We tend to, I think, just associate, magic with these big celestial events.
Right.
But traditional hoodoo is much more about understanding the natural rhythms in our like everyday lives.
It's interesting. Yeah, you're right. It's less about waiting for some kind of cosmic alignment
Right.
and more about recognizing the patterns that are already there,
Yes.
both in the world around us, but also like in the people around us. Okay.
And I love that the Broken Prophet, he uses this great analogy of a German shepherd.
Okay.
So, you can train a German shepherd to guard a home instead of herding sheep.
Yeah.
Right, because you're working with its natural instincts.
Makes sense.
And he's saying that hoodoo is very similar. It's about directing these existing energies
Okay.
towards your goal.
Right.
Oh,
Right. So
like-
you're not trying to like get the dog to do something totally unnatural.
Right.
You're just kind of like working with how it already is.
Exactly. And that's such a, I think, vivid image to me.
It is, yeah.
It really highlights the importance of strategy in hoodoo.
Okay.
Like you can have all the right ingredients for a spell, right?
Right.
But if you're not picking the right moment to do the work,
Yeah.
it's like trying to teach a fish to climb a tree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's something that he really emphasizes,
Yeah.
successful spell work, it hinges on choosing that moment
Yes.
when your target is most receptive.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Yes. And that requires observation,
Yes.
which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
And I love how he makes this point about everyone having their own kind of natural rhythms, right?
Yeah.
Like the difference between early birds and night owls.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Big difference.
Right. So he's saying, like, if you're trying to influence someone who is, like, full of energy in the morning,
Right.
aiming for later in the day when their energy may naturally dip could be a lot more effective.
Sure. You're catching them when they're a little more,
Susceptible.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And this awareness of individual rhythms, it even extends to something as simple as like when someone has had a meal.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right. You know that like sluggish feeling after you have a big meal?
Oh, yeah, the itis.
Yes, the itis.
He calls that out specifically, yeah.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He points out that this is a prime time for spell work because people's defenses are naturally lower.
They're relaxed, their guard is down, they're much less likely to resist any kind of influence.
So you're saying like don't try to like get into a debate with someone right after they've had a big plate of pasta.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's like hoodoo meets Sun Tzu's Art of War, right?
Interesting. Yeah, I see that.
Like picking your battles, choosing the moment when you are most likely to succeed.
Right.
And to kind of illustrate this point, he uses the example of a job spell.
And this job spell really brings home the importance of timing and observation in hoodoo.
So like what's the strategy with this particular spell?
Well, it involves taking like a spoonful of dirt from your home
Okay.
and another from, the workplace where you want that job.
Okay.
And you bury the home dirt at the job site.
Okay.
And then you do the reverse. So the workplace dirt at your home.
So you're creating this kind of like connection, like you're bridging those two spaces.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
And then comes the timing element, right?
Right.
So he talks about observing the workplace dynamics.
Okay.
Like, figuring out if there's a particular manager who might be a little more receptive to your energy and
Interesting.
timing your like candle burning ritual accordingly.
So it's almost like social engineering meets spell work.
Right, exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, you're not just throwing a spell out into the universe and hoping for the best, right?
Right.
You're really strategically targeting your efforts.
Yeah.
And he even cautions against trying to like work against the grain,
Yeah.
Like if there's a manager who's known for being really difficult, it's like maybe don't go after him, like
Don't make it harder for yourself.
yeah, exactly. It's about working with the kind of path of least resistance, you know?
Right, finding those moments of natural alignment.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm assuming this idea of observing these really kind of subtle cues, these moments of vulnerability, it applies to, more than just
Oh,
workplaces.
absolutely, yeah. He
Yeah.
gave this example of, like, truck drivers,
Okay.
who are often, like, exhausted after a long haul.
Right,
And
right.
he's like, if you needed to do any kind of, work on someone like that,
You're in
that's your in.
because
Yeah.
their defenses are naturally lower at that point.
Exactly, yeah. They're going to be more susceptible to influence.
Right. So it's all about kind of being observant, about recognizing those moments when someone's kind of energy might be shifted in a way that aligns with what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And it's important to note, he actually does point this out, that this approach does require like a certain level of social engagement.
Okay.
He says it can be a little bit trickier for introverted folks because you need to be, around people, observing them
Right.
to effectively use this kind of timing.
It really highlights that kind of social dimension of hoodoo to me,
All right.
how it's about like understanding and navigating those human connections and those rhythms.
It's not just you by yourself
Right.
with your candles and your herbs.
Right.
It's about working with people and understanding kind of the ebb and flow of their energy too.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It
Yeah.
almost like it reframes hoodoo to me as less about kind of mystical pronouncements
Yeah.
and more about like practical strategic action in the real world,
Right.
Yeah, it really makes you realize that magic in a lot of traditions is less about like grand incantations and more about recognizing patterns and working strategically with the energies that are, already present.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
It really is about those subtle things like you were saying.
Right.
It encourages you to like really pay attention to the details of everyday life
Yeah.
and see the magic kind of in the mundane.
It's pretty empowering actually.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about like wishing for things to be different, but actively looking for opportunities to kind of nudge them in the direction you want.
Right, exactly.
So for someone who's maybe just starting to explore hoodoo
Okay.
or even just wants to apply this kind of like strategic thinking to their life in general, what would you say is like the biggest takeaway like from the Broken Prophet's perspective on this?
I think it's really about making that shift from simply, gathering the right materials for a spell
Okay.
to really understanding the people and situations that you're, engaging with.
Right.
Become a student of your environment.
Yeah.
Pay attention to those subtle cues, those shifts in energy like we've been talking about.
It's like becoming like an energy detective in
Right.
a way.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff. So the Broken Prophet, he's given us this whole new framework, I think, for thinking about how magic works. And it really all comes down to timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
It's about understanding that we can't, force outcomes,
Right.
but we can increase our chances of success by kind of working in harmony with that natural flow of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and this deep dive has definitely given me like a whole new perspective on hoodoo.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely walking away with a whole new appreciation for like the power of observation.
Right.
It's not about mystical mumbo jumbo.
Right. Yeah.
It's about being present, being aware, understanding that like sometimes the most effective action is taken, when the time is just right.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And that's something we can all benefit from,
Right.
whether we're, practicing hoodoo or simply, navigating the complexities of our daily lives.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good life lesson in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, on that note, this has been fantastic.
It has. Yeah.
A final thought to kind of leave you with. What seemingly insignificant details in your own life or in the people around you might reveal like patterns and opportunities for you to kind of direct energy toward your goals.
Mm.
So keep your eyes open, observe the world around you, and remember timing might just be the most powerful magic of all.
It's true.
Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this was great. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.